of seven.
On this best of seven series
of a best of seven series.
Welcome to the Best of Seven podcast.
Welcome to the Best of Seven podcast. I am your host, Brandon Plant from Sens. In episode number 3 of the Best of Seven podcast, we are joined here by co-host Noah Ludin.
Hey guys.
In episode number 3 of the Best of Seven podcast, we're going to really recap the NFL free agency period, especially giving our top 7 trades of the period. And before we get into NFL free agency, we're going to get into a few notes for the future of the podcast. Firstly, Brandon Maki will be joining the show in episode number 4 as our first ever guest. We are so excited to have him, the Silver 7 writer and podcaster. He has his own show, Internal Budget, which I've joined if you want to check that out. He's a great guy, great person to listen to, really knowledgeable in sports. Excited to have him, and a huge Buccaneers fan, so I'm sure he'll be liking our episode today. As well, Kobe, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, all inducted into the 2020 NBA Hall of Fame class. So congratulations to all 3 of them, especially to Kobe. Rest in peace, of course. As well, NBA may cancel their season. It was announced by sources from ESPN, so we'll see what happens. But that would have a huge impact on the National Hockey League, NFL, MLB, etc. So if the NBA cancels their season, it wouldn't be shocking if other leagues followed suit. As well, Wimbledon canceled the tournament for the first time since World War II due to COVID-19, showing how extreme the pandemic is. Now, Noah, let's get into first things. Cowboys, franchise tag. Let's talk about that quarterback, your favorite one.
Oh, boy. I just can't believe that they can't sign Dak to an extension. Like, Dak's, like, all the reports that, I want $40 million. Oh, my God. It's so embarrassing at this point. Like, you can't even get your franchise quarterback to a contract. Like, for me, I hate it.
The problem is Jerry Jones likes to be the center stage of everything. He considers himself the king of the National Football League. You can see what happened. He was a focal point in moving the teams to Los Angeles, moving Oakland to Las Vegas. He thinks he controls everything, and if his ego might be hurt, he won't make the move. Now, Dak Prescott is not a $40 million quarterback. He is a $25-30 million guy. If Jimmy Garoppolo is a $30 million type of guy, Dak Prescott's a $30 million type of guy. Especially with, what's his name, that coach. Forget his name. He's out now.
Jason Garrett?
Worst coach in NFL history. Most mediocre guy. He's out. Even though they got that former Green Bay Packers coach, I think Dak Prescott should be better next year, but, does he deserve $40 million? No. Does he deserve
not a chance.
30? Does he deserve more than 30, though? Yeah. He's still a pretty good quarterback. So, like, between 30 and 35, I'd be okay with if I was a Cowboys fan.
Me too. Chris Jones from the Chiefs. He's just a very solid defensive lineman. He's so good. Happy the Chiefs won the Super Bowl,
Should have ran the ball the last 7-8 minutes, but it is what it is. Guy's really good. He had a really good Super Bowl, and, Chiefs are just adding to that solid team they have. There's no problems with this franchise tag. For a team like the Chiefs, their offense is figured out. Their defense at times could be shaky, but this is going to help keep that defense stabilized for the long-term future. Moving on now to wide receiver A.J. Green of the Bengals. It's expected the Cincinnati Bengals are going to select Joe Burrow first overall, former LSU quarterback. So it gives him something to throw to. As well, A.J. Green is one of the most unspoken about players in the National Football League, because he plays for the Bengals, the Bungles, as the urinating tree friend of the show says. So, A.J. Green, solid guy. What do you think about him, Noah?
Like, the problem with A.J. Green is that he's had, like, a bunch of injuries. He's had, like, this toe injury, kept him out all year last year. I like the idea of a franchise tag, because if it doesn't work out, he could just walk next year. But
that's what I'm thinking, because honestly, if you're A.J. Green, you're around 30, I believe. He's 30, right? So if you're in the later stages of your career, especially in the National Football League, you want to start playing on a contender. You want to start making the playoffs. The Bengals are not that. The Bengals are not going to do well next year, regardless of how good Joe Burrow is. They just don't have this framework. They don't have the structure to be good next year. So A.J. Green was franchise tagged because he was probably going to walk if they didn't. So it gives Joe Burrow somebody to throw to, and hopefully they can build on and get some guys for the future to throw to.
And A.J. Green's going to be 32 to start next season. So you're right. Yeah, later stages.
especially
Next, Shaq Barrett, linebacker for the
You
Bucks.
like
I love this. I mean, I would rather if they sign him to a long-term extension, of course. But he broke out. He had like 20 sacks. This guy's a monster for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's a linebacker, and he had 20 sacks. That's just how crazy this guy is. Forced fumbles. He's a monster. Absolute monster.
What I'll say about the Buccaneers defense as a whole, not just Barrett, but the Bucs defense as a whole, if it wasn't for Jameis Winston throwing 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions, that team was a playoff team last year. That defense was spectacular. And if they went 7-9 with their quarterback throwing 30 balls the other way, with Tom Brady in, we'll get to Tom Brady soon. Do not worry, ladies and gentlemen. If we're adding and they're adding to the defense in Tampa Bay, and now their offense can actually, play offense and not just give the ball to the defense, this team is going to be a playoff contender, in my opinion. Should probably make the playoffs. That defense was legit. Put them to 7-9 with a legit offense with Bruce Arians as head coach. Buccaneers might be a surprise of the season, in my opinion.
Yeah, the Bucs are really good.
And I know it sounds like I'm on the bandwagon. I'm a Niners fan, so I'm not. But the Bucs, I'm not saying Tom Brady's going to bring them a championship. I don't think he will. But I do think the Bucs are going to really improve with a quarterback that can actually throw the ball.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
Well, to their team.
To the right team.
The next one will be Yannick Ngakoue from the Jaguars. Saxonville just blew up. Gordon Ramsay, they're all gone. Campbell, they're all gone. We're going to get to Calais Campbell in a minute. But let's talk about Yannick first. So, Noah, what do you think about that?
I think that they're just going to trade him because he wants to be traded. If you check his Twitter, like every day it's just basically him reiterating that he wants to trade out of Jacksonville. I'm hoping
Gordon Ramsay.
I'm hoping that freaking Howie Roseman for the Eagles calls the Jaguars and please give up our first-round pick for Yannick Ngakoue. We can get a wide receiver in the second round. Oh, it'd be great. It'd be great, and we'd have the best defensive front in the league. 100%.
One of the best after, the Niners and Patriots. But no big deal. Just the Niners, Eric Armstead, former Niner DeForest Buckner. You got Nick Bosa, D Ford, Solomon Thomas. I don't really need to go into it too much, but our team's pretty stacked, Noah. So, it's no big deal. We'll move on now to a guy that runs through every single defensive end like it's nothing. Derrick Henry, the running back from the Tennessee Titans. Guy broke out last year, 200-plus yard game a couple of times. After a year and a half ago where he was really struggling, Deion Lewis took the lead at running back with the Titans a couple years ago, but he really recovered, really got his career back on track, and is showing how much potential he had in high school when he was the best high school player in the nation, in Alabama where he was dominating, and now in Tennessee he's finally breaking out. Derrick Henry, firstly, I've had him on my fantasy team back-to-back years. Love this guy. Derrick Henry, what do you think about him, Noah?
He has the potential to be the best running back in the league just because of how he's versatile and he's huge. He's massive. Like
linebacker.
Everyone fears him. He's like beast mode. Like the way he could just tackle through guys. Those 99-yard touchdowns that he had against the one 2 years ago against Jacksonville shows everything that Derrick Henry has. He has all.
That Jacksonville Jaguars game that you brought up was really the change for Derrick Henry. Ever since Henry had that explosive output against the Jaguars a year and a half ago, Derrick Henry has become one of the most versatile running backs in the league, and on top of that has become the player that he was supposed to be. So that game was a really huge wake-up call for Derrick Henry to change his career, get it going again, and show the potential that he had. I like Derrick Henry. I believe it was $10.4 million he signed that tag for. And he should be expecting a huge payday soon because he deserves it. Tannehill, we'll get to in a second, makes a lot of money for the next 4 years, $120 million. We'll get to that later. A little shocking. Should have been Derrick Henry's money, but anyways, we'll get to that later. Chargers. What do you think about tight end Hunter Henry as a tag?
I'm a big fan of Hunter Henry. He had I think he started off last year injured, but then came back and had a really good season for the Chargers. Very good tight end. We'll see what happens next year if they keep him or if he walks. But whoever gets him, they know that they're getting a top 5 tight end in the league. For sure.
When I think about Hunter Henry from the Chargers, I think who's going to throw to him. Tyrod Taylor, I have confidence in. He was decent. With Buffalo without a receiving core. He was decent. However, Hunter Henry if Tyrod Taylor can't throw to him, what's the point of this? If I was the Jaguar, if I'm the Chargers, I'm building for the future. You already lost your starting quarterback. Tyrod Taylor probably won't do well, and that defense gets injured really easily. I'd be franchise tagging a player of the future, and if Henry's that guy, you lock him down long term now. That team is going to be in a rebuild. They have no fans, unfortunately, because Spanos is an idiot. The team should still be in San Diego, but that's besides things. Hunter Henry, I like the player, good tag, but if they keep him long term, it's good. If not, I don't really see the point. Let's get to the trades, shall we?
All right, first trade. The Jaguars, they really blew up. They traded Calais Campbell to the Ravens for a 2020 5th-round pick. He's old. Calais Campbell's about 34 years old to start the season, but he did have 6.5 sacks last year. It was a regression from the 2 years before where he had 10.5 sacks in 2018 and 14.5 sacks in 2017. He's just really good. He hasn't missed a game in 5 years. He's got 5 Pro Bowls, first team All-Pro, and he's the 26th ranked player on PPF last year. So even though his sack numbers went down, his coverage numbers, his run numbers were stellar. So he's a really good addition for the Ravens.
When the Ravens trade a 5th-round pick, by the way, the Ravens lost in the first round last year. I know I sound like a hockey guy, but they lost in the first round last year to the Titans. They ran into that wall. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens have something special brewing. John Harbaugh is a great coach. Team has a great amount of skill. This is just adding to that for a cheap pick. A 5th-rounder? The 5th-rounder coming from 2020 will not be as good as Campbell next year, I'm sure. Campbell is a great get for the Ravens to add to that already bolstered defense. And watch out for the Ravens to really make a push for other players this year. But overall, Calais Campbell, Jaguars got fleeced here. They're losing everybody because their management's just a mess. Like we've never seen before. 25% of NFLPA's complaints towards leagues was towards the Jaguars. Overall, Calais Campbell's at a great defensive end. The Ravens are getting a great guy for a really cheap price.
100%. Great move for the Ravens.
Let's
you want
move
to go
on
to the next one?
Yeah, let's get to the next one. Huge trade here. Texans fans are not going to be too happy about this one. Bill O'Brien, don't know how he still has a job. Cardinals and Texans, Arizona Cardinals and the Houston Texans made a huge trade about a week or two ago. It feels like 2 years ago, thanks to COVID-19. However, the Texans trade David Johnson and the Texans trade DeAndre Hopkins. You heard that correct. It was a swap for David Johnson and DeAndre Hopkins. There was also a second rounder involved and a couple other players, but the main pieces of the deal was DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson, which is just absurd. Hopkins last year, he's going to be 28 in the upcoming year. He's a 4-time Pro Bowler, 3-time first-team Pro. He has played 5 of the last 6 years. He's had 1,000 receiving yards. He's only missed 2 total games in the last 7 seasons. 39th ranked last year on the PPF. DeAndre Hopkins is, in my opinion, the second best wide receiver in the National Football League after Michael Thomas of the Saints. David Johnson is not even a top 20 running back, in my opinion, anymore. Guy is starting to really, really show his age and wear and tear that he's had through the years. Bill O'Brien, what the hell are you thinking?
Yeah, he's had injury problems. He had one really good year where he did show that he had the talent. He just doesn't have the stamina.
He had a year with 1,000 rushing yards. He's made the Pro Bowl once, and it's the first-time All-Teamer. But that was once, and he's injured.
That's it. It's unfortunate what's happened with him because it was a couple of years ago, or 2 or 3 years ago, when he was the consensus #1 fantasy pick because he was just coming off of that big season, and he got injured in week 1, injured for the whole year, and it really ruined him. And last year was more of the same.
Yeah. Honestly, if I'm a Texans fan, I don't know how you're still alive. I don't know how you haven't died of crying or whatever. Because honestly, as a Senators fan, I have pity for you. Bill O'Brien's just a complete idiot. Like, this trade makes absolutely no sense. And we're gonna look at Stephon Diggs soon. He got a first-round pick. You can't even get a first-round pick for DeAndre Hopkins. Are you insane? And you get David Johnson? Holy crap! I'm a Niners fan. I'm scared now. The Cardinals. Kyler Murray with DeAndre Hopkins. That defense is looking okay. Kenny and Drake. Man, the Cardinals might come out of nowhere.
Cardinals are looking good. The problem is that they're in a tough division, though. Yeah,
Seattle and Niners and San Francisco. Bang, bang, Niner gang. It's not going to make things any easier. However, Cardinals can definitely sneak into that third wildcard spot. I know it's weird, that third wildcard spot, but, they're expanding the playoffs. Cardinals might be beneficial because of that.
Yeah.
The next one, I'll talk about this one quite a bit because it involves my San Francisco 49ers. When they made this trade, I was nothing but pissed off. I knew when they re-signed Eric Armstead that this would be the case. However, I was upset that it happened regardless. The 49ers traded defensive tackle DeForest Buckner, one of my favorite players on the team, to the Indianapolis Colts for a 2020 first-rounder, which will be 13th overall. He only missed one game in the last 4 years. He's a Pro Bowler last year. He had 7.5 sacks in 2019. In 2018, it was his breakout year, got 12 sacks. He was a dominant player. And remember, that team was not good, the San Francisco 49ers of 2018. He was 82nd ranked on PPF last year. DeForest Buckner is exactly what the Colts want and need on the defense. A young, talented defensive tackle. If the Niners could have kept him, they would have. But they have to sign George Kittle, and they just signed Eric Armstead and Deebo Samuel and this and that. All these players are going to be re-signed. We don't have the space. And Nick Bosa, of course. So we don't have the space to keep DeForest Buckner, unfortunately. Now, I would have preferred to keep DeForest Buckner over Eric Armstead. Armstead signed a 5-year deal. However, I like Eric Armstead, and I'm sure Armstead wouldn't have gotten a first-round pick, which is why they made this deal. Because if Eric Armstead could have got a first-round pick, you obviously should trade him instead of DeForest Buckner. I'm much more high on Buckner. However, Armstead is still a really good player. Overall, it's a win-win for both teams because the Niners also lost Emmanuel Sanders. So really, this trade gives the Niners 13 overall, so they're going to get one of the top wide receivers of the draft in a draft full of. There's 3 of the top 15 players are wide receivers. You got Lamb, you got the other guys. The wide receivers available 13th overall is going to be better than Emmanuel Sanders, and that player with Deebo Samuel will be spectacular. And of course, we're going to have a draft preview show before it happens, or draft recap, whatever we do. But I know I'm going really in-depth on this because I'm a Niners fan, but DeForest Buckner, if you're a Colts fan, going to terrorize the quarterback every single play. So stay tuned for that. And for the Niners, first-round pick is solid, but Eric Armstead, if he could have got a first instead of Buckner, I would have liked that much more. Let's move on to the next trade, Noah.
All right,
unless he had something to touch up on for DeForest Buckner.
All right, Bills, they got Stephon Diggs from the Vikings for 4 picks.
Yeah.
Honestly, the better than the Texans did for Hopkins, which is absolutely asinine, stupid.
It is.
But Stephon Diggs is a pretty good wide receiver, probably top 20 in that area. Very good. Very dependable, speedy wide receiver. And they've really been lacking that. They have Devin Singletary, the running back for them. He's a good young running back. And they have Josh Allen, who can throw to him. And John Brown's good, but you want to have another guy right there. And having Stephon Diggs, that's star power. Bills were really lacking star power on the offense.
And they've been trying to get a wide receiver for a while. Stephon Diggs, firstly, a first-rounder. The fact Stephon Diggs got more than DeAndre Hopkins is just appalling to me, and the fact that Bill O'Brien's still a general manager in the league is more appalling because I think my 3.5-year-old nephew could have done a better job trading than Bill O'Brien. However, if you're a Bills fan, John Brown now 1-2 duo with Stephon Diggs. You got Singletary, you got Josh Allen there, and that defense is legit. The Bills are going to win the division this year, ladies and gentlemen. Mark my words. Especially with the Patriots with Brian Hoyer as their backup and Stidham. Firstly, let's talk with Stidham for a second. I like Stidham, great quarterback. But overall, for the Bills, they get the wide receiver they need that they've been wanting for a while. You saw this with AB, Antonio Brown, when he rejected the trade there. Diggs, the Bills, they're ready to compete and win many division titles.
Yeah, 100%. Now they're the top dog in the AFC East. They're going to be really good. I do have questions about Josh Allen, but I think he can answer those for sure.
Let's answer a couple questions about the next trade. Noah, this one's all yours.
Darius Slay to the Eagles for two 2020 draft picks. Thank God the Eagles fixed that freaking secondary. It was so bad. So bad. Like they didn't necessarily cut many people, but they added Slay. They added Nickel Roby-Coleman. Oh, 2 great cornerbacks. Oh, they needed a big overhaul because that was their big issue, other than injuries in the offense. But the real big issue for the Eagles was that terrible secondary, just getting burned all the time. Darius Slay, 3-time Pro Bowler, one first-team All-Pro, 8 interceptions in 2017. He was a monster. He is the third highest PPF grade of all cornerback players in the past 3 years. Very good. Darius Slay I can't believe it, honestly. I knew it was going to happen, but
Well, I think you could have saw it happening with Malcolm Jenkins. Leaving. You probably saw some additions coming to the corner/safety position, especially as longtime Eagle Jenkins left to the Saints.
Yeah.
However, I hate to interrupt you, but Darius Slay, I hate to give it to you as well, but solid addition to the Eagles. Who's going to help the team
with
next year.
With Darius Slay and with Nikel Roby-Coleman and with Anthony Harris and with Jalen Mills moving to safety, very important because he was a safety out of college and for some reason went to cornerback, didn't pan out. And now that he's a safety, this Eagles secondary could be really good, especially with the addition of Javon Hargrave, the nose tackle from the Steelers. But we'll talk about that a little later. Next trade, final trade for you. You can have that one.
Oh, Big D Nick Foles, one-time Pro Bowler, 26-22 and 0 in his career. He creates competition for Mitchell Trubisky. The Super Bowl MVP is on his way to the Chicago Bears, the Bears from the Jaguars for like a 4th or 5th round pick. The guy was terrible in his last appearance for the Jaguars, like turn over the ball 5 plays in a row. Gardner Minshew is the future of Jaguars. I love Minshew, the Minshew mania, the stash and everything. But Nick Foles, I don't really get this if you're the Bears. If you want competition for Mitchell Trubisky, don't trade for a guy that's making $60 million a year. Get somebody like Cam Newton. Injury prone, yes. Skilled, yes. This guy can actually compete for Mitchell Trubisky to be the top quarterback in the organization. Instead, they got Nick Foles, who's likely to be the backup. Trubisky will probably be the starter, and they'll probably go 7-9 this year without running the ball or with Trubisky forcing passes. Trubisky really needs to step it up this year because if Nick Foles is the answer, they got problems for years to come.
100%. I agree. What's going to carry them is that defense. That's going to be the only reason that if they get into the playoffs, that's going to be it. It's not going to be that offense whatsoever.
No, of course not. Of course not, because that offense did F all last year. That defense is the reason they even won games. Only reason they were in the playoff contention up until the final couple of weeks.
100%. All right, first signing. You want to take that?
I'll let you take it because I'm just looking at a stat here while we get prepared for the next one.
Austin Hooper. Honestly, I like the signing for the Cleveland Browns. They signed Austin Hooper to a deal that, for now, makes him the most paid tight end in the league until George Kittle will probably take that from him. But Austin Hooper has been to 2 Pro Bowls. He does have a few injury problems, though. Hasn't reached 800 receiving yards yet, but he's a tight end. He's had a few big seasons. I think he really broke out when he had that big 88-yard touchdown a couple years ago. That's when he really broke out and became a solid top 10 tight end for the Falcons. But I kind of don't have a great thought on Austin Hooper. I think he's a little bit overrated, but I think he could work along with David Njoku for the Browns.
Thank you for pointing that out because this is what I think about Austin Hooper. His best seasons were with Kyle Shanahan as the offensive coordinator. And that's what's happened with George Kittle. Kyle Shanahan is one of those guys who has and Noah, you have to agree with this. He has one of the best offensive minds in the National Football League, without a doubt. So when you go to a team like the Browns, who had a really bad year last year, Austin Hooper hasn't been greatest in the last couple of years, but with Kyle Shanahan, he was fantastic. Now you go to the Browns. Their new head coach is a former offensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. You have Njoku, you have Baker Mayfield, who can really sling the ball. They have a really talented core. This is, I think, ideal for Austin Hooper because it's not going to put the pressure on him to be the guy anymore. You got Njoku that could get the majority of the snaps, even though I think they want Hooper to be the guy. I think it gives him the ease that if things don't go his way, Njoku could get the ball. Hunt could get the ball. Jarvis Landry could get the ball. Odell, until he's traded, can get the ball. There's options. So I think if they can really work a Kyle Shanahan type of offense with Austin Hooper, that will be very beneficial for him and his future in the National Football League, especially with the Cleveland Browns.
And there's not many teams in the league that have 2 very talented tight ends. I can think of a couple. The Browns are now one of them, but the Eagles are one of them. I know that because they've used that tight end package a lot.
The Niners
and it could
too.
be a really successful. It could be a really successful system that they have the two tight ends, because both of them really do have the potential to be solid number one tight ends. So I think that would be really good for the Browns.
With the Eagles, Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz.
So good.
Both pretty good. Not as good as George Kittle, but still both pretty good. It's a good duo in Philadelphia. Let's move forward now, though. 49ers, my beautiful favorite team who lost last year. By the way, I've been a fan since 2012. Don't call me a bandwagoner. I have proof. 49ers signed Eric Armstead, defensive lineman, to a 5-year deal worth $85 million, $48.5 million guaranteed. Guy is spectacular. Overall, the guy has had a really solid NFL career, and I would have preferred DeForest Buckner, like I said, talking about the trade. However, Armstead is a crucial piece to our defensive core. You have Nick Bosa, you have Dee Ford, Ronald Blair, Solomon Thomas. You got plenty of guys, and you got Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw on the linebacker core. The team is solid. The Buckner is a really big piece lost, but I think we could probably replace him with that second first-round pick. The first rounder will probably be a wide receiver. The next one will probably be another defensive guy. So I'm not too worried. I'm upset. Yes, we lost Buckner, but Armstead's still solid for another 5 years at a decent deal. Team-friendly. Can't complain.
Yeah, you can't complain about that signing. It's a good signing. He's a good player. He broke out last year, and I see that. I think he'll be great again this year.
I completely agree. I think the Niners are going deep again. Bang, bang, Niner again, baby.
All right. Miami Dolphins have done something that I don't think a lot of people expected them to do. They made a big splash. They made two big splashes. They signed Byron Jones, cornerback, and Kyle Van Noy, former Patriots linebacker. First, talk about Jones, because that was the big splash. 1 Pro Bowl, 2 career interceptions, though, so he's not like a flashy play kind of guy, but he's a phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal lockdown cornerback. He's got great coverage stats, and he will obviously be a great addition for the Miami Dolphins. Now, Kyle Van Noy is one of the best solo tacklers in the NFL. He's a great defensive player. He's 59th ranked on last season's PPF rankings. And I think this is actually a pretty sneaky move for the Dolphins. Like, they've really wanted to revamp that secondary and that defense in general. And these two moves really help that.
I think these type of moves kind of look like what the Bengals are doing with A.J. Green, with Joe Burrow. I think the Miami Dolphins are expected to take Tua Tagovailoa from Alabama Crimson Tide, 4th overall. And I think what they're trying to do is build some of that defense so they can actually compete and have a competitive team next year. I don't think they're expecting to be world beaters. I don't think they're expecting to be contenders. But I certainly believe they don't want to be in the basement. They want to have a decent year. First year with Tua, and Fitzpatrick is the backup or starter with – what's his name? Rosen still there?
Josh Rosen. That was a failed experiment. Oh, my God.
It was. But the Dolphins are gearing up to be contenders in the next few years, and this is the first couple of steps, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. All right.
Let's get to your favorite.
Last one. Last time I get to talk about the Eagles. Javon Hargrave, nose tackle from the Steelers. There are not many nose tackles in the league, but Javon Hargrave has to be one of the best. Headed to the Eagles, signed a 3-year contract. He's got 4 sacks in 2019. 2 years ago, he had 6.5 sacks. And he is second in the NFL last year in assisted tackles in 2019. He's all over the place. He's a monster on the field. And and on PPF's rankings, he was 68th on that list. That just makes our forefront even scarier. Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham. You got Malik Jackson. Now you got him, Derek Barnett, and potentially Yannick Ngakoue. That's just insane to me.
I think if you're an Eagles fan, you need to be incredibly ecstatic about a move of this magnitude for the Philadelphia Eagles. When you have a nose tackle, who usually their job is to push the center or the guys away so the defensive linemen and ends can get in and push in and blitz. If your nose tackle gets sacks, you should be scared as a center, because that's where the nose tackle is. The guy's getting sacks 4 last year, 6.5 the year prior. Your nose tackle is getting sacks. That's a great addition to the Eagles. The team is building solidly in the defense. Now let's see offense. Aguilar's gone, and they finally find somebody to catch that damn ball from Carson Wentz. Please, God, can somebody catch the ball in Philadelphia?
They've said that they wanted to play that from the draft. Like, they haven't really played. I don't mind that idea, but I would like. They do have Deshaun Jackson. They do have Alshon Jeffrey. I would like if the Eagles found a way to trade up in the draft and draft one of those top 3 wide receivers. That would be insane. I also wouldn't be too disappointed with them staying put and drafting a wide receiver then, or even in the second round. But getting a nice young wide receiver is a must in this draft if they're not going to sign any in free agency.
I agree. You know, the time period is over for the Eagles to get somebody in free agency. So now it's the draft. They made it clear that they're trying to get in the draft. Now, I have to ask a question. Do the Eagles have multiple picks in the first 3 rounds?
They have, I think they have a first, they have a first, they have a second, and I think they have 2 thirds.
Okay.
Maybe they have 2 seconds, but I think they have 2. I know they have 2 thirds.
If they have 2 seconds and at first, that gives them the option to move up to grab somebody. But honestly, I think you're going to probably grab a wide receiver in the second round because the top guys are going to fall out anyways. So if your decision's to replace your wide receiver core in the draft, if I'm the Eagles, I'm moving up to get one of those top 3 wide receivers. I don't 100%. Think you will, but you should, because you're contenders next year if you get one of those guys, in my opinion. The defense is legit. Now let's talk about somebody that's not legit. Marcus Mariota agrees to the Las Vegas Raiders. Really weird to say.
I don't like it.
I don't like it at all. I feel for the Oakland fans. As a Niners fan, it sounds weird to say. It's weird to say because we're a big rivalry, but no fan base that really supports their team, like the Oakland Raiders fans who are really vocal about their team, show you shouldn't lose their team. It's like San Diego, Oakland, the same thing. It's just a terrible thing that happened. They didn't deserve it. Even though I'm a Niners fan, they can all kiss my ass. So
I honestly don't know about this move. Like, to me, it's a puzzling move with Marcus Mariota to the Raiders, but I think they're just really mediocre in that position, and I don't think getting another mediocre quarterback really does much. It creates competition with Derek Carr, yes.
Your guy Derek Carr is, by the way. Do you see those videos of Antonio Brown? Guy's a little weird, a little off.
Yeah, Derek Carr is a interesting person, but I wouldn't be surprised if even this year or next year that both of these guys are out of Oakland and they have to restart fresh on that. They have to. It's not working with these guys.
Honestly, what I think is, John Gruden surprised a lot of people last year with the former Oakland Raiders doing well. If I'm a Vegas Raiders fan, or fan from Oakland cheering for Vegas, once again, I feel really bad for Oakland fans. It's just terrible what happened. I got to reiterate that. Should never have happened. Mariota is nothing more than a flashy pick. If you can rekindle that potential, absolute fantastic signing, but I don't think you can. I don't think it's there. Mariota has never really shown anything consistent. Yeah, 76 touchdowns, 44 interceptions in his National Football League career in 63 games. As a former second overall pick, you expect him to be a guaranteed starter right now if he's competing for a backup spot or a starter spot potentially. And he's not the clear number 1. This is his last shot to be a starter in the National Football League. Unless something crazy happens in the future. So this is it for Marcus Mariota. He better make the best of it.
That's it.
Let's talk about the next team we both hate.
Yeah. How about them Cowboys signing Amari Cooper to a $100 million deal with the Cowboys? He's a good wide receiver. I'll give him that. 4 Pro Bowls. He had 1,189 reception yards last season, 8 touchdowns. Very good. 64th ranked last year on PPF. He's very good. I just think that that's Dak Prescott's money, and I think that you got to focus on Dak than Amari. Amari's replaceable, especially in this draft. Amari is replaceable. Dak is not.
Well, I wouldn't say that exactly. That's a hot take right there, ladies and gentlemen, because the Cowboys don't have a pick in the top 20. They don't have a pick in the top 15, I believe. I think they're like 17 or 18th, the Cowboys. And those 3 wide receivers are going to fall out before them. So if I'm a Cowboys fan, I'm happy about this. Amari Cooper is one of the best wide receivers in the National Football League. And if you're Dak Prescott, you're happy too because you have somebody to throw to. However, if you're Dak Prescott, you're like, he's getting paid Why am I not getting paid? So I agree with you on that point. I think Dak Prescott's going to have an interesting negotiation with Jerry Jones because they're going to need to find the money somewhere, and it's going to affect somebody else's salary because Dak Prescott wants to get paid, and Amari Cooper just got paid, deservingly so. But if you want Amari Cooper's contract to be worth it, you need to pay the guy to give him the ball. So you need to give Dak Prescott some money soon.
And I'm curious to see what happens with Mike McCartney in there for the Cowboys. Maybe the whole problem was Jason Garrett. Honestly,
that was the problem. Jason Garrett is the most mediocre coach in National Football League history. Holds the all-time record for most 8 years in NFL history. I hate Jason Garrett. He's the definition of mediocrity, and he has no place in the National Football League as a head coach. Terrible. Mr. High Five and Clap is gone. See you later. Good riddance. Jesus.
Yeah.
Terrible. As a Niners fan, I was upset he was gone, but as a Cowboys fan, I just feel the upset and anger because we're Sens fans and we understand.
Yeah,
organization futility. We understand. Trust me, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm going to be. I'm curious to see what happens with the Cowboys. Obviously, I hope that they suck, but I'm curious to see what Dak and Amari do now that they have an actual head coach who knows how to actually coach teams, like an actual Super Bowl winning coach. It's going to be interesting for sure. Especially
with expanded playoff format, I really think the Cowboys. I don't see how they don't make the playoffs next year. The Cowboys are just too skilled. They're so skilled that they win 8-8 with a coach that doesn't know what 1 + 1 is. So this team should be a contender next year. Stephen A. Smith won't be too happy, but you know what? As a Niners fan, I'm sure my team will take them down anyway, so I don't care.
All right, next, the Saints. I'm not really sure what people were really thinking. In my opinion, there was never a chance that they were going to let Drew Brees retire. He wasn't going to retire. They weren't going to start anyone else. It wasn't going to be Taysom Hill or Teddy Bridgewater. It was going to be Saints keeping Drew Brees on a 2-year contract, $50 million. He has the most touchdowns by a QB ever, and he's just amazing. He should have been on that NFL 100 list. Somehow he wasn't. Well, that was terrible, but
what I think about this deal is two things. Firstly, not spoken about enough because of Tom Brady, because of the DeAndre Hopkins deal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Not talked about enough, understandably. It's a quiet deal, 2 years, $25 million each year. Drew Brees, one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Super Bowl winner, I believe, right?
Yeah.
I think he won in 2008 or something. So, if I'm a Saints fan, I'm happy. You're contending for the next 2 years. And if you're Taysom Hill, I think he re-signed with the Saints as well. I think he's the future quarterback. I think that's what they're talking about. He's a dual threat. So you got your backup as your future, and you got Drew Brees as your now. So small deal, technically. It was an expected deal, but nonetheless an important one that was made.
I'd say Taysom Hill is one of the most interesting players in the league because he can be anything. Like, he could be a receiver, he could rush, he can throw. I like them having Taysom Hill, and I wouldn't be surprised if a team without a quarterback right now aggressively pushed for Taysom Hill because of that unique style of play.
Well, I definitely can understand that as a Syracuse Orange fan. He reminds me a lot of quarterback legend from Syracuse University, Eric Dungy. If you're a Hughes fan, you know a lot about this guy. Guy looks like a tight end or a linebacker, plays like an animal as a quarterback. That's what Taysom Hill is. Dungy, I believe, was with the Renegades in Dallas of the XFL, signed with Cleveland Browns of the NFL. Surprised he doesn't have a position in the NFL yet. You watch his you look at his stats, you watch his highlights. Eric Dungy is a great player. Taysom Hill is similar, and overall, Brees is the future. Is now Hill is the future, and I like that hot take. Thinking teams are going to contend to try to get him. We'll see what happens in the next 2 to 3 years for the future of Taysom Hill. But speaking of the Saints, big move. Drew Brees signed. Teddy out. Teddy Bridgewater signs with the Carolina Panthers, who needed a new quarterback thanks to Cam Newton getting released. Teddy Bridgewater has all the skill in the world to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. However, the injuries always catch up to him. He's 27 years old. He had 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions in 5 games last year when Brees got hurt. he kept the Saints in it when Breeze was hurt for a few games. So in those 5 games, I think they went 4-1 or something. Bridgewater really showed his skill. It looked like the team, the engine just kept on going with Sean Payton as the head coach, with or without Drew Brees there. So Teddy Bridgewater, I expect him to struggle a bit with Carolina, but I think he will do well. And I think Carolina, with a new head coach, new coaching core, and I think their new with CMC, Christian McCaffrey, I think this is a nice experiment for the Carolina Panthers.
I'm a big fan of this. I really am a big fan of this. He has all the potential in the world to be a top 10 quarterback in this league. The Panthers got some big weapons. Obviously, you mentioned McCaffrey. They've got Curtis Samuel. Like they really can, and they have a really good draft pick this year, which is another thing. And I think that Kyle Allen was definitely not going to be it. Honestly, Kyle Allen to me is just a career backup, and he got traded to the Redskins, and I don't think he's going to be much. And Cam Newton, I think his time had come with the Carolina Panthers. I'm surprised that no one's talked to Cam Newton at all, but we'll see what happens with him. Same thing with we'll see next. We'll talk about a Buccaneers quarterback, but Cam Newton out. I really like this for Teddy Bridgewater. He really deserved this. He's worked so hard to come back from injuries, and he played so well last year. As you said, kept them in it. Yeah. They got really good playoff positioning.
Because of Teddy Bridgewater.
Do anything with it, but
they didn't.
Very good signing for the Carolina Panthers.
Let's move on to the next signing, potentially the largest or most surprising National Football League free agent addition to a team in the history of the league. The GOAT, and I know Joe Montana is number 2, but the GOAT with 6 rings on his finger on both hands. Tom Brady, 6-time Super Bowl champion, the GOAT. He's pretty effing good. He's going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, honestly, if you told me 2 years ago that Tom Brady wasn't going to retire as a Patriot, I would have thought, yeah, you're crazy. Tom Brady, I've said from the beginning, I think Tom Brady's going to retire as a Patriot. He's going to retire as a Patriot, and he still wants to play after this year, and he honestly still could. Like, he can throw the ball. And Tampa Bay needed a quarterback. They either needed to play to Jameis Winston's strengths, which is very hard to do because he has a very unique – I'm high on Jameis Winston. He has a very unique set of skills. He's a very out-of-the-pocket quarterback. When you look back at his touchdowns and interceptions, his interceptions are where he gets the ball, throws in the pocket, intercepted. When he throws touchdowns, it's him rolling, and throwing. So that if you really need a mobile team to play with Jameis Winston, I don't think the Buccaneers are that, regardless of the fact that they have really good receiving core, and that is what Tom Brady needs. Last year, he didn't have a terrible defensive core, but offensive core, sorry, but it was pretty bad. Like their top, he had Edelman, but then N'Keal Harry had his problems.
Yeah. What I think is it's pretty simple. Tom Brady is the GOAT. Buccaneers instantly better. We already spoke about this. The defense is legit. The offense should be better. And they should be improving from 7-9 from last year. Jameis Winston, though, let's talk about him for a second. The guy has skill. 30 touchdowns ain't easy to do. 30 interceptions ain't easy to do. But Jameis Winston, I think it's funny as a 49ers fan. I'm looking at this guy. I'm like, this guy would fit perfectly in the 49ers system. Running. Throwing the ball at guys running slants. That's all Kyle Shanahan likes to do. So I don't think they're going to sign him thanks to Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't want them to. But it's pretty ironic. Jameis Winston needs to go to a team that runs the ball and does a lot of slant plays. Because if they do that, Jameis Winston should succeed in the National Football League. He needs to find the right fit, which is pretty common in the National Football League. Unlike other sports, you need to find the right fit to play your game.
He actually reminds me a bit of Carson Wentz, but in a different way. So Carson Wentz
explain that a little bit, Noah.
No, but Carson Wentz has a lot of problems with turnovers, not interceptions, but Carson Wentz has a big fumbling problem. How he fumbles the ball a lot. Like, he had the most fumbles second most to Daniel Jones, I think, fumbles last year. And he can throw a lot of touchdowns. He's shown that he throws a lot of touchdowns, but his turnovers keep him back a little bit. Jameis Winston throws a lot of touchdowns, but his turnovers keep him back a lot. And Carson Wentz has the same sort of thing where he's not as good as a pocket passer as he is an out-of-the-pocket passer, a scrambler, like a Russell Wilson type of quarterback.
Yeah.
Where he runs, he rolls, he throws, he scores. That's how it is with Jameis Winston. And I really think if there was a coaching staff who believed in that and believed in playing to his strengths, that they can actually be a good team and they can limit the interceptions. Now, the stupid thing about Jameis Winston is that he got laser eye surgery. I don't understand what that was all about. Honestly, if that helps him, great, so be it.
My father got it, and he doesn't need to wear glasses now or contacts. So it does help a bit, but it sounds more like a TMZ article to me. Then I don't think it will affect too much of his on-field production. Moving forward now, well, no, I'll let you take the reins on this one. Your former guy.
All right, Malcolm Jenkins. Eagles fans are going to be really sad, and I was pretty sad because he's a big threat at that safety position. He plays all the time. He hasn't missed a snap this season.
Since 2013.
And he hasn't missed a game since 2013. That's absurd, by the way. 7 years. He didn't miss a single game.
Especially
He's
in a game
so
like
good, but Father Time was coming up. He needed a new contract, and the Eagles were not going to pay him. And he's had some turmoil reports before, so I wasn't surprised that they released him, but it is a big hole to fill. Jalen Mills and Rodney McLeod are going to have to fill that hole. I think they can, but it's going to be very difficult, and it's a big loss. And on the other side, it's a big gain for the New Orleans Saints. A big upgrade in that safety position. He's a captain player. He has a lot of leadership qualities, and I think it's a great move for the Saints and bring him back for sure.
I think so too. I think the Saints needed a guy like him in the back end. There's been too many games last year where the Saints were going into shootouts. I think that really helps their defense, and their offense really doesn't need to be spoken about. Their defense looking legit. The Saints are a well-rounded team. Let's see if they can really put the puzzle together finally this year and win a championship.
100%.
Moving forward now, Desmond Trufant to the Lions. The guy is solid. 4 interceptions last year, 1 Pro Bowl. Was a breakout candidate last year. What do you think about Desmond Trufant?
I think it's a solid ad. The Lions are also doing sort of what the Dolphins are doing and revamping that defense. And I can't say that it's a bad signing to sign Desmond Trufant. You just lost one of the best cornerbacks in the league, Darius Slay. Why not get another one who had a great year last year? One of the only cornerbacks to pick off Carson Wentz. He did it twice in that game, which they lost to the Lions somehow. But Desmond Trufant's a great ad for the Lions. I think they'll do well. They still have a couple of problems to deal with, but I think that they can be decent, especially if Matt Stafford stays healthy, because he's a great quarterback when he's healthy. When he's healthy. That's the big problem.
Just got an emergency alert. Sorry, I'm going to...
Oh, Amber?
Yeah. Yeah, we're good. I'm just going to pause the recording. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, sorry about that. It's a good reminder, though, to talk about COVID-19 for a second. Make sure you wash your hands. Stay home. Stay the F home if you don't need to. Send a social distance. Self-isolate. Quarantine yourself. Stay away from people if you don't need to. Stop traveling if you don't need to. Let's flatten the curve. Let's kick the ass out of this deadly disease. Let's get rid of this thing sooner rather than later so we can get back to normal life, so less people are dying, and of course, so we can get our damn sports back.
Yes, please. 100%.
That's why we're doing it on Zoom. Just interact digitally until we get this thing under grip.
All right. Third last signing we have to talk about. It's back to the Falcons with Todd Gurley. This is an interesting one. To the Falcons, I did not expect him to go to the Falcons, but he's had some knee problems, obviously. But before that, he was the best running back in the league, no question. 3 Pro Bowls, 2 first-team All-Pros. But even last year, not too bad. 857 rushing yards and 12 rushing touchdowns and 2 receiving touchdowns added on top of that. So he's still decently versatile, and he can work, but he's a little less effective than he was before.
Speaking as somebody with a knee injury history, torn my meniscus before really badly. He was out for a year and a half in baseball. Todd Gurley going back to Georgia, Atlanta. He was a University of Georgia Bulldog, played in that Mercedes Stadium, I believe. Todd Gurley is a great get for the Falcons. There's nothing wrong about this. You got to be well wary about his injury in the knee section. However, there's no negative about this. Todd Gurley is back in Georgia. He's going to dominate, I'm pretty sure, when healthy. And you know what? The Falcons, I'm not saying they're a contender, playoff contender, but they should be better than they were at the first half of last year.
Yeah, they've been really disappointing the past couple years. I'm surprised at how bad they have been.
Actually, I know why. Kyle Shanahan left. They couldn't rediscover their offense. It's true. It's true though. He's one of the best, if not the best, offensive mind in the National Football League.
Always comes back to Shanahan.
It does, because it shows how good he is. Because after that Super Bowl where they lost after being up 28-3, we all know the story, to the Patriots in the Super Bowl a few years ago. All we've seen is bad offense from the Falcons. Don't bring up that game last year, Falcons versus Niners, the last second, where, Julio got a touchdown. Don't talk to me about that. However, the Falcons showed that they really lost something when Kyle Shanahan left the team.
Also, the Falcons beat the Eagles when Julio got another late touchdown and won it. So, we're both shaking our heads here, but they had a pretty bad record this year. They had a pretty bad record the season before that, and I just hope that they can recapture that glory that they had when they went to the Super Bowl, because the Super Bowl really ruined them.
I agree. Let's move forward now to a team that's probably not shaking their heads, probably clapping at this one. A nice 2-year deal for $12 million, 6 years for a really underrated tight end. Eric Ebron, the former Colts tight end, signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He had a breakout year in 2018 where he made the Pro Bowl. Has progressed a little bit since that time. However, he's still a serviceable tight end. And specifically for tight ends, he had 750 receiving yards in 2018 and 13 touchdowns that year as well. Last year, only had 3. So this is a good bounce-back candidate, in my opinion, for the Steelers. They really needed a threat on the tight end position, and they got one with Eric Ebron for a small deal. You have potential for a big reward. Noah, what do you think?
Yeah, the Steelers, they needed a couple of weapons on offense. Obviously, they've had problems at the quarterback position when Roethlisberger got hurt, and then they sort of did this seesaw thing with Devlin Hodges and Mason Rudolph. And, I think they just need an extra weapon at tight end. They had Vance McDonald, but again, a second tight end never hurts anyone. And I think Eric Ebron's going to be a pretty solid addition. Yeah, if he could just recapture that 2018 season when he had 13 touchdowns, which is crazy.
If he gets 6 or 7 touchdowns, that's a solid. That's $1 million per touchdown. But that's, in NFL terms, a 7 touchdown guy as a tight end is pretty good. So
that's very good. Yes, and he has all the talent. You've seen that one-handed grab that he had last year.
Oh, and
that was nasty.
Ooh,
yeah. So
Dirty,
he's obviously got the talent, and he's just got to be consistent. That's all.
Ever since college, he had the talent. I just need to put it together. And I'm not too confident with Ben Roethlisberger as the quarterback. But you know what? Take advantage of the opportunity. Maybe Roethlisberger can recover, but he's old, and Steelers have a really good defense. But I think the Steelers, if I'm the Steelers, this is a hot take, ladies and gentlemen. Cam Newton, if I'm the Steelers, I'm looking at him. Roethlisberger only has a year or two. You might as well. Cam Newton's young, has potential. He's a super guy already. He's already been there. He has experience, so he's basically a veteran too. But he's also a rookie. He's a veteran. He's young. He's old. He's everything. He's what you want. He has experience, and he has skill. And if I'm the Steelers, I'm signing Cam Newton. I know that's a hot take, but Brandon Roethlisberger, it looks like his arm is going to fall off. They need someone to come back. Damn well in Pittsburgh, their fans are not going to watch a team that goes 6-10. Cam Newton could be the answer for the future.
Maybe. You never know.
I know that came out of nowhere, but honestly, it was either them or the Bears, in my opinion. So Bears are gone. Newton should go to the Steelers because I think Patriots, Stidham's going to be their starter, who's really good. I saw him in Texas. He was one of the best high school players. I've been following him. My boy is a really close, a really big Patriots fan. He likes Stidham. I think they're going to tank for Trevor Lawrence, so don't worry about the Patriots. There's a reason Cam Newton hasn't gone there yet. Now, let's get to that final signing for my former 49er. Emmanuel Sanders heads to the New Orleans Saints on a 2-year deal. He's 33 years old. Emmanuel Sanders was not the greatest last year. He had 5 touchdowns. However, he's a dependable deep threat when needed. If he is your second wide receiver on your team, like the second option, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. This guy used to be a top 10 guy in the league. He's now a solid guy. At 33 years old, for the Saints, 2 years, you're getting the last little bit of juice left in the tank for him. He's a solid guy. Has great speed. Jimmy Garoppolo overthrew him in the Super Bowl. He had like an 85-yard potential catch there, just showing his speed that he has against a really good safety core in Kansas City. So, overall, solid deal for the Saints. Decent money too. I don't know why I don't have the numbers here, but it doesn't matter. The 2-year deal for the Saints with Sean Payton as the coach, as Drew Brees as the quarterback with Michael Thomas there. Emmanuel Sanders is a good fit.
Yeah, I can't say anything bad about this signing. Drew Brees gets another weapon. There's not much else to say. He had 5 touchdowns last year, 869 receiving yards. Very good, very dependable. And just make sure that you don't overload him because he is 33 years old, and you don't want him to get injured like very early in the season, which happens with old wide receivers.
I don't think you have to worry about that though with Michael Thomas there. You got Michael Thomas.
The Saints are going to be so good. They got Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Drew. They're just great. They're just a great team.
They should be. But the Niners are there, and, they might say something about that. No, but honestly, the Saints should be a 2 or 3 time Super Bowl champion of the last 10, 15 years. But their own futility has gone in the way.
Mm-hmm. They've had some pretty bad playoff losses in the past 3 years. They got the Minneapolis Miracle. You got that overtime catch from Kyle Rudolph, which is probably passer interference. Yeah. And then obviously you have that loss against the Rams where that was definitely passer interference. And the Saints fans must be really cringing right now.
I think that's a good way to wrap it up, though, to talk about how the Saints haven't done anything with their skill for years to come. It's a good way to end it. By the way, the Niners beat them in the last second last year. One of the greatest games. Nothing but respect to the Saints and their fans, though. There's a little bit of hockey news if you're an Ottawa 67s fan. The Toronto Marlies today signed Noah Hoffenmeyer to 2-year AHL contracts. Hoffenmeyer, if you're a 67s fan in Ottawa of the OHL. Hoffenmeyer is a 100-point defenseman, so good for him. Happy to see him putting his NHL future or dreams into action. Now, Noah, how about you tell everyone where they can listen and watch the podcast?
So you can first off follow us on social media on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Sens Talk Podcast. And then you can listen to us on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Music, and Google Play. We're on all of those, and we hope that you listen. Also, tune in on YouTube. Sens Talk. Subscribe. Make that red button gray.
Put that. You're watching this video right now. Click the big red button down there. Subscribe to us. We're almost at 700, so I'd really appreciate that. Like this video, of course. Share this video. I really appreciate your support as we are debuting this new podcast. So once again, next week, Brandon Maki will join the show. So stay tuned for that, ladies and gentlemen. But besides that, I am Brandon Plant, and this is the Best of 7 podcast. I'll see you next week. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you soon. Noah?
Have a great. Just make sure you stay safe and stay home, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys, for watching. And this is Brandon Plant for the Best of 7 podcast. We'll see you all next week.